The circus that is the Consumer Electronics Show opens its big top today in just a few hours in Las Vegas. It is not a look at the future. It is a look at what electronics companies desperately hope the future will be. The last couple of years, it's been smart TVs. Now it's smart houses, smart clothing. Scott Galloway, you have been to CES, but you don't go to CES. Do we need smart stuff?
Well, CES has sort of become the consumer world's Davos, and that everyone goes to meet there.
Okay.
But so far, I mean, for me, the big takeaway every year from CES is that TVs are going to get bigger and cheaper, which, granted, is important. But it seems to me it's becoming less and less relevant. If you take out the fact that it's an incredible agora, a credible meeting place, try and think of what is the one thing that seems different or insightful that's come out of CES so far. I have trouble thinking what it is.
Well, we have a list here. We can bring it up of things that have been debuted. We have a list. We were prepared. So we have, it started in 1967. Let's look.
It debuted then.
1985, Nintendo.
So we're going back to 85.
Reaching deep in the well. Okay, point taken. But let's talk about TVs. You know, I keep seeing, again, at CES, it's the rise of the smart TV. Do we want a smart TV, or do we just want a big, flat, cheap screen?
Well, so interactive TV was supposed to be a big hit, and the core advantage, the core competence of TV is it doesn't ask you to interact with it. It's a passive activity, and that's what we love about it. They do need an operating system, though. They've gotten pretty complicated, so you can just do basic search. So what do we have? We have Android, Sony announcing they're going to be on the Android platform. Samsung has developed their own platform, which usually does not end well. And also Firefox is getting into the game.
Great. Where's Tim Cook?
You know, we're all waited with bated breath for an Apple TV. Yeah, I agree.
I think they have four people.
Well, we'll tell you where he's not. He's definitely not at CES. This is the one thing that, you know, Bloomberg News reported this week was just that, you know, we've got 4 people from Apple, at CES. We've got 405 from Amazon. Yeah, well, Apple isn't on social media either. Apple takes the conventional wisdom and just pivots the other way, and it seems to be working so far. So that's not surprising.
I mean, what's the? Have you been there? Have you ever been to
you know, I've only been to CES once, Tom.
What's it like?
A giant, you know, a giant conference with a bunch of TVs and drones flying everywhere, and attractive people wearing logoed shirts. You know, it's just trying to get you to that.
Sounds like heaven.
Yeah. It's not. Where CES has done an amazing job is the folks from CES have marketed this thing and turned it into an unbelievable event and gathering. People go to CES to meet the same way. Yeah, the billionaires' brunch that takes place in Davos. If you're a CEO, you say, let's meet in Davos, so let's get together. So I think it's the gathering, it's the attendees in the room that are really the value of CES.
How shattered is Samsung right now? What kind of a year? I mean, we don't talk enough about Samsung with the distance
They're supposed to report earnings today.
And all that. Where is Samsung right now?
It is really interesting. So show me at the bottom. The entire world of business and retail is bifurcating into the value player at the low end and the value add, the innovator at the high end. And right now you have, and I never know how to pronounce this, Xiaomi in China is the value player. The Apple, 80% of the value for 60 or 40% of the price. And then you have the innovator at the high end. And you have Samsung, who's turning into the JCPenney's or Sears of the world in the middle, which is an ugly place. I could even say it could happen. I'd be love to hear your thoughts geographically. You have the U.S., which is the innovator. You have Asia, which is a low-cost provider. And you have Europe trying to find its identity in the middle, getting squeezed. And I realize that's a bit of a stretch. But Samsung finds itself in the uncomfortable position of being in the middle, not knowing if it's the innovator or the low-cost provider.
And Samsung also dealing with a lot of activist investors pushing it to use some of its cash, to deploy some of it, return some of it to investors, something that Apple is pretty familiar with.
Sales of Samsung down 26% in China this year.
It did an amazing job of reinventing itself once.
Fantastic.
Is that possible again? What would it need to do?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's all about, there are 2 youth serums in the world of consumer right now. The first is product development and the other is digital. The best way to get a facelift for your brand is to come up with some sort of cool digital content. And Samsung, fantastic management team, amazing brand, consistently innovating around product. So absolutely don't count them out. But this is a what have you done for me lately business. And the real innovation in the space has come at the low end and the high end, and Samsung has been squeezed. But, they're far from out. Still a huge player and a great company.
Scott Galloway.